Okay guys, this is Mrs. Gower. I am attempting to sort of do a voiceover for this video because originally it had so much static. So in the video you'll see my previous drawing of my left eye where I finished shading it. You'll even see the reference sitting there in my supplies. So supplies are going to be the same, just like with the eye. So I have about 3 pencils and an extra eraser just to save my erasers on the end of my pencil. I actually have one pencil, or a couple of those pencils are really sharpened, and another one is actually pretty dull. And I do that on purpose. I'm going to use the dull pencil for most of my shading, and then I like to use those sharper pencils for those tight, hard to get to areas. Okay, so I'm actually going to draw my nose on the same paper as I drew my eye. You are more than welcome to do that, or you can do it on an extra piece of paper. So it's totally up to you guys. Another thing is too, if you don't have your sketchbook, you can do this with any plain white piece of paper if you've got some at home, or you can use a notebook piece of paper. So that's up to you to decide. So now I'm working with my photograph of my nose. Now remember, your reference might be on your phone, which is perfectly fine. Okay, I recommend that you do that. The only reason why I printed my photograph off on paper was because I didn't want to have to deal with my screensaver while recording the video. So that's the only reason why I have it printed off. I actually do recommend strongly that you use your photograph on your phone, directly look at it on your phone, because the light from your phone actually helps you see the photograph a lot better. If you would like to see your photograph larger, another option for you is to actually email your photograph to yourself, to your school account, and then you can open up that photograph on your Chromebook and you can look at it much larger. I actually like, for this situation, to keep it small, so that's why I printed off the photo small, and I think looking at your photograph on your phone small is actually also too another good idea. So that way, really, when you do the drawing, you're actually just doing actual size and not trying to translate something that looks really, really big to something that's small. So it allows you to do actual size. So it works out well. So here I am just trying to kind of find a space on my sketchbook to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start by drawing a rectangle to put my nose drawing in. And I'm actually drawing the rectangle about the same size as the actual photograph. And as you can see, I'm not using a ruler. I'm just using my pencil. Doesn't have to be nice and neat. Okay. And I'm just going to get that rectangle on there. And that just kind of gives me an idea about what size that I'm going to be working on. If you wanted to, you could just trace your actual phone for that shape. So you don't ever need to use a ruler at all. So once I get the rectangle set and I like the size and it looks good, and then I'm ready to start. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is I'm going to draw a line for the nose straight down the middle of this rectangle that I drew for the drawing. And that's just going to help me kind of keep things lined up. That line will not exist when I actually go to shade the drawing. So it's just there to kind of help me. So I'm going to actually start by drawing the bottom of the nose. So I'll start with the bottom of the nose. And you'll be able to see, like, you have like sort of the ball of the nose kind of dips down, and then you'll see that then I will start I'll start with the bottom of the ball of the nose, and then I'm going to work my way up to like the nostril holes. I'm just kind of playing around with that, and you guys can see I'm keeping my pencil lines really light, and I'm doing that on purpose because I'm probably going to be changing it, and I want to make sure that I can change it and you don't see my old lines. So by keeping your pencil lines nice and light, it gives you more room to play, kind of mess around with your line without having to show all those old lines in your drawing. Plus, too, when you draw lightly, you're not damaging the paper. So now what I'm doing is I'm starting to draw in the actual nostril holes. Now, the thing that's really interesting that you might find is that We are not symmetrical people, and nor is our nose from left to right side. So like my left nostril is not the same shape or size as my right nostril hole or the actual nostrils themselves. So each one of those has a different shape. So I'm kind of paying attention to the differences between those. So do not get caught up in trying to make your left side exactly like your right side, because it's not. So you want to embrace those imperfections, and this is what's going to make it look more natural. If it's too much the same on both sides, it's going to look more like a cartoon or an illustration. So I'm just playing around with just this bottom shape. So the round ball of the nose and then the nostril holes. After I'm finished with the sort of the basic shape for the nostril holes and the round ball of the nose, then I'm going to go into the actual nostrils. Now, one of the things that I'm pointing out right now is like when you're dealing with like the eye, your eye has a lot of edges that makes it really easy to kind of like draw a lot of information in before you even start shading. You're going to find that the nose is a lot different. There aren't a lot of parts to the nose, and there aren't really a lot of edges to work with. So the drawing part, believe it or not, is going to go really fast. It's the shading that's where you're going to find that you're going to be spending most of your time on it. So there's really not a whole lot to draw to the nose. So now what I'm doing is I'm kind of looking at both of my nostrils, and again I'm looking at how different they are. So I'm just kind of cataloging in my head what the differences are and pointing those out to myself, which then is going to make it more likely that I'm going to actually show those differences in my drawing. So I'm just kind of cataloging those differences. So now I'm starting to draw those nostrils. And one thing I want you to notice in the drawing is that I did not connect the bottom edge of the nostril to the actual nostril hole. So I've left that open, and that was done on purpose too. So once I kind of get a start on that, then I'm just going to play with it until I feel like I've got them in a good spot. Now, I kind of get the drawing on there quickly, and then I play with it for a while. You got to play with it to get it in a good spot. So I'm just kind of messing with it. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of draw some shapes that are more aligned with the shadows that I see on my nose and not edges. So right there, I was pointing out the ball of my nose. And I can tell that the shadow on the ball of my nose is creating kind of like a round circle shape. Now, you might find that your shape is a bit different than mine, and it should be, because your nose is your nose and mine is mine. So what I'm doing is I'm just going in and I'm actually drawing the edge of that shadow, or the shape that the shadow is making on the nose, which is going to help me see that form on the end of the nose better. Now I'm dealing with sort of the bridge of the nose, which is right there in the area where your eyes are. And all I'm doing is just kind of drawing across there so you can see what area I'm talking about. So you'll notice that in that area of the bridge of the nose, it's skinnier there, and it gets longer as it comes down to the bottom of your nose. It should not be the same width at the top as it is at the bottom. So at the top, again, it's going to be thinner, and then it's going to get wider as you go down to the bottom of your nose. And so I'm just kind of looking at that and trying to get it. And again, there really isn't an edge there. What I'm doing is I'm drawing the edge of that shadow that's right there at the bridge on either side of the bridge of my nose. So you can see it's lighter in the middle, and then I've got two shadows on either side of it. So I'm drawing those edges for those shadows. And that usually connects up to your eyebrow somehow. So I'm just kind of playing it. Again, I get it drawn on, and then I go in and I kind of fix it up. But it's never right the first time at all. And then all I'm doing is just kind of drawing down. You can see over here on the left side of my nose, I've got a shadow that creates a shape all the way down the nose. So I'm just drawing that in. Again, just as a way to kind of map out for myself when I go to start shading where that shading needs to be. And then you can see I've got sort of a much different shape over on the right side. I've actually got a highlight that's hitting the side of my nose, whereas I don't have a highlight on the left side. So I'm just going through and kind of tidying things up a bit. This is where I like to use my pencil eraser to kind of go in and clean stuff up. You notice, again, I kept the bottom of the nostril open. So the actual nostril and the nostril hole, I did not make that nostril hole a complete shape. That's one of the, you don't want to do that. So I'm just showing what not to do. So do not close that off. Your nostril holes are like caves, and caves have entrances. And so that's what I'm doing, is I'm leaving it open so it looks like a cave. If I close that off, it's going to look like a two-dimensional shape, and it's going to look flat. I need it to look like there's some dimension there. And then you have right below your nose something that a lot of people refer to as the Cupid's bow. So I'm just kind of drawing that in, and it's the same thing with the Cupid's bow as it is with the nose. It's always a little bit closer at the top, and then it kind of spreads out towards the bottom or where the mouth would be. So I'm drawing those in right under the nose. Okay. So I'm just kind of going through, tidying stuff up. I'm almost finished. So as you can see, there's really not a whole lot to draw for the nose. The secret in how to get the nose to look right is really in all of the shading. So I've drawn just about as many edges as I possibly can. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you guys how you should be taking a photograph of your work, okay? When you're photographing your work, you want to make sure that you are parallel to your sketch. So, you're not, laying your sketch on the table and then standing up and taking it at an angle. You don't want to do that. So you want to be flat, parallel, you want to be parallel to your sketch. And then as you can see, the picture that I took has a lot of shadows. From me, the camera, that would not be what I would consider to be a good photograph. So when I photograph this, to turn in, I'm going to have to move probably to another area in my house. I've got an area where it's right next to a window. I get good light that comes in. I'll photograph it there, and I will actually post that on the Canvas assignment so you can see the difference in the quality of the photo. But that picture that I just took, it's got too many shadows on it, so it makes it too hard for me as the teacher to be able to see it. Okay. So what you're going to do, remember, is after you finish your drawing, you're going to photograph it. You want a nice, good, clear photograph. You're going to photograph it, and then you're going to upload that directly to Canvas to turn in that assignment. A lot of you guys on the eye, some of you guys forgot to photograph your drawing before you started shading. So I'm breaking up each facial feature into 2 different assignments.